It was just another mundane Tuesday at my nutrition clinic in Raleigh, when the universe decided to throw me a curveball. I had no idea that a simple fender bender would be the catalyst for a journey that would turn my world upside down. I was rushing out to my car, arms laden with files, and my mind preoccupied with my next appointment, when I heard the sickening crunch of metal on metal. My heart sank as I realized my pristine Prius was now sporting a new dent, courtesy of a sleek black Audi. "Shit," I muttered, fumbling with my belongings as I tried to assess the damage. That's when I heard her voice, a husky alto that sent an inexplicable shiver down my spine. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" I looked up, ready to unleash my frustration on the careless driver, but the words died on my lips. Standing before me was a vision in a tailored charcoal suit, her raven hair framing a face that belonged on a magazine cover. Her sapphire eyes were wide with concern, and I found myself momentarily lost in their depths. Yeah, I'm fine," I stammered, suddenly feeling like an awkward teenager instead of the confident 29-year-old nutritionist I was. "The car, though." She grimaced, running a hand through her hair. "I feel terrible. I was distracted by a call from work. I'm Alice, by the way." "Alice Rodriguez." "Mila Anderson," I replied, shaking her offered hand and trying to ignore the spark I felt at her touch. "Look, it's not that bad. Maybe we can just exchange information and—" "Nonsense," Alice interrupted, her tone brooking no argument. "I insist on making this right. Let me take you to dinner tonight and we can sort out the details. It's the least I can do." I hesitated, my mind racing with reasons why I shouldn't accept. I had reports to file, clients to call, and a gym session planned, but something in Alice's earnest expression made me want to throw caution to the wind. "All right," I found myself saying, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Dinner it is?" Alice's face lit up with a grin that could outshine the sun. "Fantastic. I know this great little place downtown. 7 o'clock?" I nodded, feeling a flutter of excitement in my stomach that I couldn't quite explain. We exchanged numbers, and as I watched her drive away, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had just taken an unexpected turn. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I went through the motions with my clients, discussing meal plans and exercise regimens, but my mind kept drifting back to Alice. Her confident demeanor, her dazzling smile, the way her suit hugged her curves. "Wait, what?" I shook my head, trying to dispel these unfamiliar thoughts. I'd never been attracted to a woman before. This was just admiration, right? As 7 o'clock approached, I found myself standing in front of my closet, agonizing over what to wear. This wasn't a date, I reminded myself sternly. Just a dinner to discuss car repairs with a stranger who happened to be gorgeous and charming. I settled on an emerald green wrap dress that brought out the color of my eyes and tamed my unruly blonde curls into a sleek updo. As I applied a final swipe of lipstick, I caught sight of my reflection and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. There was a sparkle in my eyes that I hadn't seen in years, a flush to my cheeks that spoke of anticipation. The restaurant Alice had chosen was an intimate Italian place, all soft lighting and the aroma of garlic and wine. She was already there when I arrived, rising to greet me with a warm smile that made my heart skip a beat. "Mila," she said, her eyes appreciatively taking in my appearance. "You look stunning." I felt a blush creep up my neck. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." As we settled into our seats, I couldn't help but notice how at ease Alice seemed. She ordered a bottle of wine with the confidence of a sommelier and engaged our waiter in friendly banter. I found myself captivated by her every move, hanging on her every word. "So Mila," Alice said, leaning in conspiratorially, "tell me about yourself. What's a beautiful nutritionist like you doing in a city like Raleigh?" I laughed, feeling the tension in my shoulders start to melt away. "Oh, just trying to save the world one balanced meal at a time. What about you? What do you do when you're not terrorizing innocent Priuses?" Alice's laughter was rich and infectious. "I'm a lawyer, actually. I specialize in LGBTQ rights. It's challenging work, but incredibly rewarding." As the evening wore on, our conversation flowed as freely as the wine. We discovered a shared passion for hiking, a mutual love of obscure indie films, and a joint disdain for reality TV. I found myself opening up to Alice in a way I hadn't with anyone in years, sharing my dreams of opening my own wellness center and my fears of never finding true connection in life. It wasn't until the waiter politely informed us that the restaurant was closing that we realized how much time had passed. As we stood outside in the balmy night air, I felt a curious reluctance to say goodbye. "This was unexpected," I said softly, looking up at Alice. "Thank you for turning a crappy situation into a wonderful evening." Alice's eyes seemed to darken as she gazed at me. "The pleasure was all mine, Mila. Maybe we could do it again sometime? Without the car accident as an excuse?" I nodded, my heart racing. "I'd like that." As I drove home that night, my mind was a whirlwind of confusion and excitement. I couldn't shake the feeling that something momentous had just happened, that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't even begin to imagine. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything I thought I knew about myself and love. Weeks passed, and I found myself thinking about Alice more often than I cared to admit. Our dinner had been a one-time thing, right? Just a way to smooth over an awkward situation. So why did I keep replaying our conversation in my mind, remembering the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed? I threw myself into my work, determined to push these confusing thoughts aside. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. It was a balmy Saturday evening when I found myself at the annual Raleigh Charity Gala. I'd volunteered to man the nutrition awareness booth, handing out pamphlets on healthy eating habits to the city's elite. The event was in full swing, the ballroom a sea of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. I felt a bit out of place in my simple black cocktail dress, but I was here for the cause, not the glamour. As I was arranging a display of organic snacks, a familiar voice cut through the din of the crowd. "Well, well. If it isn't my favorite fender bender victim?" I spun around, nearly knocking over a tower of quinoa chips. There stood Alice, resplendent in a deep blue gown that hugged her curves in all the right places. My mouth went dry. "Alice, what are you doing here?" She grinned, lifting a glass of champagne and a mock toast. "Representing my firm, we're one of the sponsors for the LGBTQ youth shelter. And you?" "Nutrition awareness," I managed to say, gesturing to my sad little booth. "Trying to convince the upper crust that kale can be delicious." Alice laughed, the sound sending a warm tingle down my spine. "A noble cause. Mind if I hang out here for a bit? These events can be a bit stuffy." I nodded, perhaps a bit too eagerly. As we chatted, I found myself relaxing, the awkwardness of the gala fading away. Alice had a way of making me feel like we were the only two people in the room. Her attention focused solely on me. "So, Mila," she said, leaning in conspiratorially, "what made you want to become a nutritionist? Childhood dream of force-feeding vegetables to unwilling victims?" I snorted, nearly choking on my sparkling water. God, no. I was actually pre-med in college. But then my mom got diagnosed with diabetes, and I saw firsthand how much diet could impact health. It was like a light bulb moment, you know? Alice nodded, her eyes soft. "That's amazing. Using your personal experience to help others. I respect that." As the night wore on, I found myself paying less and less attention to my booth and more to Alice. She regaled me with stories of her most interesting cases, her eyes lighting up as she talked about the families she'd helped. "It's not always easy," she admitted, her voice growing serious. "The law isn't always on our side, but when I see a same-sex couple finally able to adopt, or a transgender teen getting the support they need, it makes it all worth it." I felt a lump form in my throat, moved by her passion. "That's incredible, Alice. You're really making a difference." She smiled, reaching out to squeeze my hand. The touch sent a jolt through me, and I found myself staring at our joined hands, marveling at how right it felt. The spell was broken by the sound of silverware tapping against glass. The gala's host was calling for everyone's attention, preparing to announce the night's fundraising total. As the crowd surged forward, Alice and I found ourselves pressed close together. I could smell her perfume, a heady mix of jasmine, and something uniquely her. My heart was racing, and I couldn't quite catch my breath. "Hey," Alice said softly, her breath warm against my ear. "Want to get out of here? I know a great little jazz bar not far from here." I hesitated for a moment. I should stay, clean up my booth, network with potential clients. But the thought of spending more time with Alice was too tempting to resist. "Lead the way," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. The jazz bar was everything the gala wasn't. Intimate, relaxed, filled with the smooth sounds of a live band. We found a small table in a corner, our knees brushing under the table. As we sipped our drinks, a bold red wine for Alice, a virgin mojito for me, our conversation flowed freely. We talked about our families, our dreams, our fears. I found myself opening up in a way I hadn't in years, sharing things I'd never told anyone else. "You know," Alice said, her eyes twinkling in the dim light, "I have to confess something. I've been wanting to see you again ever since our dinner, but I wasn't sure if you'd be interested." My heart skipped a beat. I've been thinking about you too," I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I've never felt this way about a woman before. It's all new to me." Alice's expression softened. She reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "There's no rush, Mila. We can take things as slow as you need. I just enjoy being around you." As the night wore on, I found myself lost in the moment. The soft jazz, the warmth of Alice's hand in mine, the way her laugh made me feel like I was floating. It was intoxicating. When the bar finally closed, we lingered outside, neither of us quite ready for the night to end. "So," Alice said, a hint of nervousness in her voice, "would you maybe want to go hiking with me next weekend? I know a great trail just outside the city." I smiled, feeling a surge of excitement. "I'd love to." As I watched Alice's cab disappear into the night, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Excitement, fear, anticipation. I was stepping into uncharted territory, and part of me was terrified. But another part, a part that was growing stronger by the minute, couldn't wait to see where this journey would lead. Little did I know, our hike would be the catalyst for something I never saw coming, something that would challenge everything I thought I knew about myself and love. The week crawled by at an agonizing pace. Every client consultation, every meal plan, every moment seemed to stretch on forever as I waited for Saturday to arrive. When it finally did, I woke before dawn, my stomach a knot of nervous excitement. I'd agonized over what to wear, finally settling on a pair of form-fitting yoga pants and a moisture-wicking tank top. Practical for hiking, but also flattering. Not that I was trying to impress Alice or anything. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. We met at the trailhead just as the sun was peeking over the horizon. Alice was already there, looking unfairly gorgeous in shorts that showed off her long, toned legs. Her black hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, a few stray strands framing her face. "Morning, sunshine," she grinned, handing me a steaming travel mug. I brought coffee. Figured we could both use the caffeine. Our fingers brushed as I took the mug, sending a jolt through me that had nothing to do with the coffee. "Thanks," I mumbled, taking a sip to hide my blush. The trail Alice had chosen was beautiful, winding through lush forests and offering breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains. As we hiked, our conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences, and shared appreciation for the scenery. I found myself stealing glances at Alice when I thought she wasn't looking, the way the dappled sunlight played across her skin, the graceful way she moved over the uneven terrain, the little furrow of concentration between her brows as she navigated a particularly tricky section of the trail. It was distracting, to say the least. We'd been hiking for a couple of hours when Alice suddenly stopped, a frown on her face. "Mila, do you hear that?" I listened, hearing only the rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds. "Hear what?" "That rumble, I think." Her words were cut off by a deafening crack of thunder. The sky, which had been clear when we started, was now ominously dark. "Shit," Alice muttered, glancing around. "We need to find shelter. There's a ranger station about a mile up the trail. Think we can make it?" I nodded, trying to ignore the pit of fear in my stomach. We set off at a brisk pace, the air growing heavy with the promise of rain. We'd barely made it half a mile when the skies opened up, drenching us in seconds. The rain was relentless, turning the trail into a slippery mess. I stumbled, my foot sliding on a patch of mud. Before I could fall, I felt Alice's strong arms around me, steadying me. "I've got you," she said, her voice barely audible over the pounding rain. Her face was inches from mine, raindrops clinging to her eyelashes. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. We made it to the ranger station just as another crack of thunder shook the air. It was a small, rustic cabin, clearly meant for emergency use rather than comfort. But it was dry, and right now, that was all that mattered. "Well," Alice said, wringing water from her ponytail, "this is cozy." I laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. We were both soaked to the bone, shivering in the cool air of the cabin. Alice rummaged through the supplies left for emergencies, coming up with a couple of scratchy wool blankets. "We should get out of these wet clothes," she said, her tone practical. "We'll catch our death otherwise." I nodded, my teeth chattering too much to form words. We turned our backs to each other, stripping off our sodden garments. I wrapped myself tightly in the blanket, trying not to think about the fact that I was now essentially naked in a small cabin with Alice. When I turned around, I found Alice looking at me with an unreadable expression. Her blanket was draped loosely around her shoulders, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of smooth skin. I felt heat rise to my cheeks, and it had nothing to do with the exertion of our hike. "Come here," Alice said softly, opening her arms. "We should share body heat, to warm up." I hesitated for a moment before stepping into her embrace. The feeling of her skin against mine was electric, sending shivers down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. We sank to the floor, huddled together in our nest of blankets. "This isn't quite how I imagined our hike going." Alice chuckled, her breath warm against my neck. I laughed shakily. "No? You mean you didn't plan for us to end up half naked in a cabin in the woods?" "Well, maybe I hoped for something like this," she teased, her fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm. Minus the near drowning, of course. I turned to look at her, our faces mere inches apart. Her blue eyes were dark, intense, filled with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Or maybe I was just afraid to name it. "Alice," I whispered, my heart pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. I've never." "Shh," she murmured, her hand coming up to cup my cheek. "We don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. But Mila, can I kiss you?" Time seemed to stand still. I could hear the rain pounding on the roof, the distant rumble of thunder. But all I could focus on was Alice, the warmth of her skin, the softness of her touch, the way her eyes flicked down to my lips. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I nodded. Alice leaned in, her lips brushing against mine with exquisite gentleness. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a demand. And then, as if a dam had broken, I was kissing her back with a fervor that surprised us both. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing heavily. Alice rested her forehead against mine, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Wow," she breathed. "Yeah," I agreed, feeling dazed and exhilarated all at once. We spent the rest of the afternoon in that cabin, talking, laughing, and yes, kissing. By the time the rain let up and we made our way back down the trail, I felt like a different person. The world seemed brighter, more vibrant, full of possibilities I'd never considered before. As we parted ways in the parking lot, Alice pulled me in for one last kiss. "So," she murmured against my lips, "same time next week?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. "It's a date." As I drove home, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. I'd just had my first kiss with a woman, and it had been incredible. Terrifying, yes, but also thrilling in a way I'd never experienced before. But as the high of the moment began to fade, doubts started to creep in. What did this mean for me? For my life? Was I gay, bi, just experimenting? And what would my family say? I realized, with a mix of excitement and trepidation, that I was standing at the edge of something big, something that could change everything. The question was, did I have the courage to take the leap? The days following the hike were a blur of conflicting emotions. I'd catch myself smiling at random moments, remembering the softness of Alice's lips, the warmth of her skin against mine. But then, just as quickly, panic would set in. What was I doing? This wasn't me. I didn't kiss women. I didn't feel this way about women. Did I? I needed to talk to someone, to sort out the chaos in my head. There was only one person I could turn to. My best friend, Jess. We'd been through thick and thin together since college, and if anyone could help me make sense of this, it was her. I invited her over for wine and girl talk, trying to act normal as we settled on my couch with our glasses of Merlot. But Jess knew me too well to be fooled. "All right, Spill," she said, fixing me with her no-nonsense stare. "You've been weird all week, what's going on?" I took a deep breath, then blurted out, "I kissed a woman." Jess's eyebrows shot up, but to her credit, she didn't look shocked. "Okay," she said slowly. "And how do you feel about that?" I don't know," I admitted, the words tumbling out in a rush. It was amazing, terrifying but amazing. But Jess, I'm not gay. At least I didn't think I was. I mean, I've only ever been with men. What if this is just some sort of, I don't know, MMID life crisis or something? Jess snorted. Honey, you're 29. If this is your midlife crisis, you've got bigger problems than kissing a hot woman. I couldn't help but laugh, some of the tension easing from my shoulders. Fair point. Look, Jess said, her tone softening. Sexuality isn't always black and white. Maybe you're bi. Maybe you're pan. Maybe you're straight, but this particular woman does it for you. The label doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel. I nodded, taking a sip of wine to steady myself. I feel alive. When I'm with her, it's like everything is brighter, more intense. But I'm also terrified. What will people think? My family? My clients? Jess reached out, squeezing my hand. Screw what other people think. You deserve to be happy, Mila. And if this woman makes you happy, then that's all that matters. Her words settled over me like a warm blanket, comforting and reassuring. But there was still one nagging doubt. What if? What if I'm not enough for her? I whispered, voicing the fear that had been lurking in the back of my mind. She's so experienced, so confident. I have no idea what I'm doing. Jess rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You're a catch, Mila Anderson. And if this woman can't see that, then she doesn't deserve you. But from what you've told me, it sounds like she's pretty into you too. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my chest. Thanks, Jess. I don't know what I'd do without you. Probably make terrible life choices and die alone, she quipped, raising her glass in a mock toast. Now, tell me more about this mystery woman. Is she hot? As I filled Jess in on the details of my burgeoning relationship with Alice, I felt a sense of excitement building. Maybe this wasn't as scary as I'd thought. Maybe it was just the beginning of something wonderful. The next day, I woke up to a text from Alice. Dinner tonight? I know a great little Thai place. I hesitated for a moment, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I remembered Jess's words. I deserve to be happy. And Alice. Alice made me happy. Sounds perfect, I typed back. Can't wait. That evening, as I got ready for our date, and it was definitely a date this time, I felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation. I chose a flowy sundress that showed off my curves, spending extra time on my makeup and hair. Alice was waiting for me outside the restaurant, looking stunning in a fitted blazer and jeans. Her face lit up when she saw me, and I felt a flutter in my stomach. You look beautiful, she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. The casual intimacy of the gesture made me blush. Dinner was lovely, the food spicy and fragrant, the conversation flowing easily. But there was an undercurrent of tension, a spark of electricity every time our hands brushed or our eyes met. As we walked back to our cars, Alice suddenly stopped, turning to face me. Mila, she said, her voice serious. I need to know, what is this to you? Because I like you. A lot. But if this is just an experiment for you. I cut her off, surprising us both by pulling her in for a kiss. It was nothing like our first kiss in the cabin. This was heat and passion and certainty. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, I looked into her eyes. This isn't an experiment, Alice. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but I know it's real. You're real, and I want to see where this goes. The smile that spread across Alice's face was radiant. She pulled me close, her forehead resting against mine. That's all I needed to hear, she murmured. As we said our goodbyes that night, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Yes, there were still challenges ahead. I still had to figure out how to tell my family, how to navigate this new aspect of my identity. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was excited. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Alice. Sweet dreams, beautiful. Can't wait to see you again. I fell asleep with a smile on my face, dreaming of blue eyes and soft lips and possibilities I'd never dared to imagine before. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of dates and stolen kisses and late-night phone calls. Alice was patient with my inexperience, never pushing me further than I was comfortable going, but with each passing day, I found myself wanting more. It wasn't just physical attraction, though that was certainly part of it. It was the way Alice listened when I talked about my dreams for my career. The way she could make me laugh even on my worst days. The way she looked at me like I was the most fascinating person in the world. I was falling hard and fast, and for once in my life I wasn't trying to stop it. Just when I thought life couldn't get any more complicated, Alice dropped a bombshell on me over our usual Sunday brunch. "Mila," she said, her tone uncharacteristically serious as she set down her mimosa. "I need to ask you something important." My heart raced, mind jumping to 1,000 possibilities. Was she breaking up with me? Proposing? Both seemed equally terrifying at this point. "I'm working on a high-profile case," she continued, oblivious to my internal panic. "It's a same-sex adoption suit that could set a precedent for the entire state. I need an expert witness on child nutrition and development. Would you consider testifying?" I blinked, caught off guard. "Me? But I'm not. I've never done anything like that before." Alice reached across the table, taking my hand. "You're brilliant, Mila. Your expertise could make a real difference for these families. Plus," she added with a wink, "I get to see you in a power suit." I laughed, feeling a mix of flattery and terror. I'll think about it, okay?" As I mulled over Alice's request over the next few days, I realized this was about more than just a case. It was about standing up for what I believed in, about using my knowledge to help others, and if I was honest with myself, it was also about impressing Alice. So, a week later, I found myself in a law office, surrounded by case files and legal jargon. Alice was in her element, her eyes sparkling as she laid out the details of the case. "The opposition is arguing that same-sex couples can't provide the same nutritional and developmental support as heterosexual couples," she explained, her voice tight with controlled anger. "It's bullshit, of course, but we need hard facts to prove it." I nodded, already formulating arguments in my head. "I can definitely help with that. There's plenty of research showing that the gender of parents has no impact on a child's nutritional health or development." Alice beamed at me, and I felt a warm glow of pride. "You're amazing, you know that?" As we delved deeper into the case, I found myself becoming more and more invested. These weren't just abstract legal concepts, these were real families fighting for their right to love and care for their children. I threw myself into research, determined to build an ironclad testimony. But as the trial date approached, the pressure began to mount. I started having nightmares about freezing on the stand, about saying the wrong thing and ruining everything. Alice tried to reassure me, but I could see the stress was getting to her too. The night before the trial, we were working late in Alice's office, surrounded by empty coffee cups and takeout containers. I was pacing, running through my testimony for the 100th time, when I felt Alice's arms wrap around me from behind. "Breathe, love," she murmured, her chin resting on my shoulder. "You've got this." I turned in her arms, burying my face in her neck. "What if I mess up? What if I let you down?" Alice pulled back, cupping my face in her hands. "Mila, listen to me. You could never let me down. Just by being here, by fighting for this, you've already done more than I could have ever asked for." And then she was kissing me, soft and sweet and reassuring. I melted into her, all my anxieties fading away for a moment. When we broke apart, Alice rested her forehead against mine. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we're in this together, okay?" I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Together. The next morning, as I stood outside the courthouse in my carefully chosen power suit, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Alice appeared beside me, looking fierce and beautiful in her lawyer attire. "Ready?" she asked, offering her hand. I took a deep breath, lacing my fingers with hers. "Ready?" As we walked into the courthouse, heads held high, I realized that this was about more than just a case. It was about standing up for love in all its forms. It was about fighting for families who just wanted the chance to love and nurture their children. And in a way, it was about Alice and me, and the journey we'd begun together. The trial was a whirlwind of legal arguments and expert testimonies. When it was my turn to take the stand, I felt a moment of panic. But then I caught Alice's eye, saw the pride and confidence in her gaze, and found my voice. I spoke about nutrition, about child development, about the countless studies showing that what mattered most was love and stability, not the gender of the parents. I countered the opposition's arguments with facts and figures, my voice growing stronger with each point. When I stepped down from the stand, Alice squeezed my hand under the table. "You were brilliant," she whispered. The trial stretched on for days, each side presenting their arguments. I sat beside Alice, watching her in action, marveling at her passion and skill. Even when things looked bleak, she never lost her fire. On the final day, as we awaited the judge's decision, Alice turned to me. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "I want you to know how proud I am of you, and how grateful I am to have you by my side." I felt tears prick my eyes. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be," I replied, meaning it with every fiber of my being. When the judge finally returned with his verdict, the courtroom fell silent. I held my breath, gripping Alice's hand tightly. "In the matter of adoption rights for same-sex couples," the judge began, his voice echoing in the hushed room, "this court finds in favor of the plaintiffs." The courtroom erupted in cheers. Alice let out a strangled sob of relief, pulling me into a fierce hug. Around us, families embraced, tears of joy streaming down their faces. As we left the courthouse, surrounded by celebrating couples and their children, Alice pulled me aside. Her eyes were shining with tears and triumph. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "We really did it." I smiled, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment I'd never experienced before. "You did it, Alice. I just helped a little." She shook her head, pulling me close. "We did it together, just like everything else." As we stood there, basking in the glow of victory, I realized that this was just the beginning. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. But with Alice by my side, I felt ready for anything. Little did I know, our biggest challenge was yet to come, one that would test not just our professional partnership, but our personal relationship as well. The high from our courtroom victory lasted for days. Alice and I were riding a wave of euphoria, celebrating our win and the positive impact it would have on so many families. But as the dust settled, I found myself facing a new challenge, one that I hadn't anticipated. It started with a text from my mother. "Honey, I saw you on the local news. What were you doing at that gay rights trial?" My stomach dropped. I'd been so caught up in the case, in my growing feelings for Alice, that I'd completely forgotten about the potential consequences. I hadn't come out to my family yet, and now they'd seen me on TV, standing proudly next to my girlfriend in a courtroom full of same-sex couples. "Shit," I muttered, staring at my phone. "What's wrong?" Alice asked, looking up from her laptop where she'd been drafting a press release about the case. I showed her the text, watching as understanding dawned on her face. "Oh, Mila," she said softly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about the publicity affecting you like this." I shook my head, trying to push down the panic rising in my chest. "It's not your fault. I should have thought about it. I don't know how to do this, Alice. How do I tell them?" Alice set aside her work, coming to sit beside me on the couch. She took my hands in hers, her touch grounding me. "There's no perfect way to do it, love, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm here, whatever you need." I leaned into her, drawing strength from her presence. "Will you come with me? To tell them?" She kissed my forehead gently. "Of course. Whenever you're ready." The next week found us driving to my parents' house in the suburbs. My hands were shaking so badly that Alice had to take over driving halfway there. As we pulled up to the familiar two-story house where I'd grown up, I felt like I might be sick. "We can turn around if you want," Alice offered, her hand warm on my knee. "We don't have to do this today." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. No, it's time. They deserve to know. My parents were waiting for us in the living room, their faces a mixture of confusion and concern. My mother's eyes widened slightly as she took in Alice, standing supportively at my side. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "This is Alice, she's my girlfriend." The silence that followed felt like it stretched for an eternity. Then my father cleared his throat. "Girlfriend? But Mila, we didn't know you were." "Gay?" I finished for him, surprised at the steadiness in my voice. "Neither did I until I met Alice. It's been a journey of self-discovery for me too." My mother's brow furrowed. "Is this because of that case? Did she convince you to?" "No, Mom," I interrupted, feeling a surge of protectiveness. "Alice didn't convince me of anything. She just helped me realize who I truly am." Alice squeezed my hand, a silent show of support. I watched as my parents' eyes tracked the movement, saw the moment of realization cross their faces. What followed was hours of difficult conversation. There were tears, mostly mine, raised voices, mostly my father's, and moments when I thought it might all fall apart. But slowly, painfully, we began to reach an understanding. By the time Alice and I left, things were far from perfect. My parents were still struggling to understand, still grappling with their own preconceptions and fears. But they had hugged me goodbye, had shaken Alice's hand, had promised to try. As we drove home in the gathering twilight, I felt drained but oddly liberated. "Thank you," I said softly to Alice, "for being there with me." She smiled, taking my hand across the center console. "Always, love. I'm so proud of you." That night, as we lay tangled together in bed, I felt a shift in our relationship. The air between us seemed charged with possibility, with a new level of intimacy born from the shared experience of the day. Alice propped herself up on one elbow, her eyes dark and intense in the low light. "Mila," she said softly, her free hand tracing patterns on my bare arm, "I want you to know that I love you, all of you. Your strength, your kindness, your passion. I love watching you grow into yourself, seeing you become more confident in who you are." I felt my breath catch in my throat. "Alice, She placed a finger gently on my lips. "You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." But I did know. I knew with a certainty that shook me to my core. "I love you too," I whispered against her finger. "So much it scares me sometimes." As we lay together afterward, sweat cooling on our skin, I felt a sense of completion I'd never known before. This was where I belonged, who I was meant to be. "What are you thinking?" Alice asked, her fingers combing gently through my hair. I smiled, pressing a kiss to her collarbone. "I'm thinking that I'm the luckiest woman in the world." She chuckled, the sound vibrating through her chest. "Funny, I was thinking the same thing." As we drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead might not be easy, but with Alice by my side, I was ready to face whatever came our way. Little did I know, our newfound happiness was about to be tested in ways we never could have imagined. The morning after our night of passion, I woke up feeling like a new woman. Alice was still asleep beside me, her dark hair splayed across the pillow, her face peaceful in repose. I traced the curve of her cheek with my finger, marveling at how much my life had changed in such a short time. As if sensing my gaze, Alice's eyes fluttered open. A slow smile spread across her face as she focused on me. "Good morning, beautiful," she murmured, her voice husky with sleep. I leaned in to kiss her, marveling at how natural it felt now. "Good morning," I whispered against her lips. We spent the morning in a blissful bubble, trading lazy kisses and soft touches. But reality came crashing back in with a call from Alice's office. "I have to go in," she said apologetically, already reaching for her clothes. "There's been a development in another case." I nodded, trying to hide my disappointment. "Go, save the world. I'll be here when you get back." Alice paused in the act of buttoning her shirt, her eyes softening. "Promise?" I smiled, pulling her in for one last kiss. "Promise." After Alice left, I decided to use the day to catch up on work. I had a stack of client files to review and meal plans to create. But as I sat at my desk, I found my mind wandering, replaying moments from the night before. I was jolted from my reverie by a notification on my phone. It was a message from an old college friend, linking to a local news article. "Isn't this your girlfriend?" the message read. My heart racing, I clicked the link. The headline made my blood run cold. "Local lawyer in hot water, allegations of misconduct surface." The article detailed accusations against Alice, claiming she had used unethical tactics to win our adoption rights case. There were quotes from the opposing counsel, insinuating that Alice had manipulated evidence and coerced witnesses. I felt sick. This couldn't be true. Not my Alice, who was so passionate about justice, so dedicated to helping others. I tried calling Alice, but it went straight to voicemail. My texts went unanswered. As the day wore on, more articles appeared, each one more damning than the last. Social media was buzzing with speculation and condemnation. By the time Alice finally came home, looking exhausted and defeated, I was a wreck of anxiety and confusion. "Is it true?" I blurted out as soon as she walked through the door. Alice's face crumpled. "No, God, no, Mila. It's all lies. But they're launching a formal investigation. I could lose my license, everything I've worked for." I pulled her into my arms, feeling her body shake with suppressed sobs. "We'll fight this," I promised fiercely, "together." The next few weeks were a nightmare. Alice was consumed by the investigation, spending long hours with her own lawyers preparing her defense. I did what I could to support her, but I felt helpless in the face of the legal storm. Worse, the scandal was affecting my life too. Clients started canceling appointments, citing concerns about my association with controversial figures. My family, still adjusting to my coming out, now had to deal with seeing my face splashed across the news alongside salacious headlines. One particularly bad day, I came home to find Alice surrounded by papers, her eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. Maybe. I started hesitantly. Maybe we should take a step back, just until this blows over. Alice's head snapped up, her eyes wide with hurt. What are you saying, Mila? I swallowed hard, hating myself for the words even as they left my mouth. It's just, this is affecting my career too, my family. Maybe if we weren't so publicly together right now. I see. Alice's voice was cold, her face shuddering. So when things get tough, you want out, is that it? No, I protested, reaching for her. But she stepped back out of my reach. I don't know how to handle this, Alice. I'm scared. And you think I'm not? Her voice cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm fighting for my entire career, my reputation. And now the woman I love wants to abandon me? I felt like I'd been slapped. That's not fair. I'm not abandoning you. I'm just suggesting that we hide, that we pretend we're not together, that I face this alone. Alice shook her head, wiping angrily at her tears. I can't believe I thought. I need some air. Before I could stop her, she was gone, the door slamming behind her. I sank to the floor, my own tears flowing freely. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? Hours passed. I tried calling Alice, but her phone was off. I paced the apartment, alternating between worry and anger. How could she just leave like that? Didn't she understand how hard this was for me too? It was past midnight when I heard the key in the lock. Alice walked in, looking tired but calmer. I'm sorry, we both blurted out simultaneously. A beat of silence, then we both laughed, the tension breaking. I shouldn't have suggested hiding our relationship, I said, moving towards her. I was scared and selfish, and I'm so sorry. Alice nodded, taking my hands in hers. And I shouldn't have stormed out like that. I know this is hard on you too. I need you, Mila. I can't do this without you. I pulled her close, breathing in her familiar scent. You won't have to. We're in this together, remember? No matter what. We spent the rest of the night talking, really talking, about our fears, our insecurities, our hopes for the future. By the time the sun rose, we had a plan. We would face this head-on, together. No more hiding, no more shame. We would show the world that our love was strong enough to weather any storm. The next day, we called a press conference. Standing hand in hand in front of a sea of cameras, we told our story. The truth about the case, about our relationship, about the strength we found in each other. Love is love, Alice said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. And we will not apologize for ours. As we walked away from the podium, ignoring the shouted questions from reporters, I felt a sense of pride and determination I'd never experienced before. Ready for whatever comes next? Alice asked, squeezing my hand. I smiled, feeling stronger than ever. As long as I'm with you? Always. The days following our press conference were a whirlwind. Our story had gone viral, sparking debates across social media and news outlets. We received an outpouring of support from LGBTQ communities and allies, but also faced a barrage of hate from those who opposed our relationship and Alice's work. Through it all, Alice and I clung to each other, finding strength in our love. The investigation into Alice's conduct dragged on, but we refused to let it dampen our spirits. We had each other, and that was enough. One crisp autumn morning, as we sat on our balcony sipping coffee, Alice turned to me with a glint in her eye. Let's move in together, she said, as casually as if she were suggesting we try a new restaurant. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? Are you sure? With everything going on? Alice took my hand, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Mila. I want to wake up next to you every morning, to build a life with you, unless you don't want to? I laughed, pulling her in for a kiss. Of course I want to, you idiot. I love you. We spent the next few weeks house hunting, losing ourselves in the joy of planning our future together. It was a welcome distraction from the ongoing stress of the investigation and the public scrutiny. We finally found the perfect place, a cozy townhouse with a small backyard where I could start an herb garden for my nutrition experiments. As we signed the lease, I felt a surge of excitement. This was really happening. We were starting our life together. The day we moved in was chaotic but filled with laughter. Our friends came to help, turning the task into an impromptu housewarming party. As I watched Alice directing traffic, her face flushed with exertion and happiness, I felt my heart swell with love. That night, after everyone had left and we were surrounded by boxes, Alice pulled me close. "Welcome home, love," she murmured, her lips brushing against mine. We christened every room that night, our laughter and moans echoing through our new home. As we lay tangled together in our bed, I felt a sense of peace I'd never known before. But life, as it often does, had other plans for us. The call came early one morning, jolting us from sleep. It was Alice's lawyer. The investigation had concluded, and the results weren't good. While they hadn't found evidence of direct misconduct, there were enough gray areas to warrant disciplinary action. Alice listened in silence, her face growing paler by the second. When she hung up, she turned to me with tears in her eyes. "They're suspending my license for 6 months," she whispered, "and I have to pay a hefty fine." I pulled her into my arms, feeling her body shake with silent sobs. "It's okay," I murmured, stroking her hair. "We'll get through this. It's only 6 months." But as the days wore on, the reality of our situation began to sink in. With Alice unable to work, our finances took a hit. The fine drained our savings, and suddenly, our beautiful new home felt like a burden. I picked up extra clients, working long hours to try and make ends meet. Alice threw herself into volunteer work, desperate to feel useful, but I could see the toll it was taking on her, the light in her eyes dimming with each passing day. One night, I came home late to find Alice sitting in the dark, a half-empty bottle of wine on the coffee table. "I'm ruining your life," she said, her words slightly slurred. "You should leave while you still can." I felt a stab of pain in my chest. "Don't say that," I pleaded, kneeling in front of her. "I love you, Alice. We're in this together, remember?" She laughed bitterly. "Look at you. You're exhausted, working yourself to the bone because of me. This isn't the life you signed up for." I took her face in my hands, forcing her to meet my eyes. "This is exactly the life I signed up for. The good and the bad, remember? I'm not going anywhere." But as the weeks turned into months, I began to feel the strain. We argued more, over little things that never would have bothered us before. The stress of our situation was taking its toll on both of us. One particularly bad fight ended with Alice storming out, slamming the door behind her. As I sat in our suddenly too quiet home, I couldn't help but wonder if love really was enough to overcome all obstacles. Hours later, Alice returned, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I've been selfish, wallowing in my own misery. You deserve better." I shook my head, pulling her close. "We both deserve better. Maybe we need help, professional help." Alice nodded against my shoulder. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's try." We started couples therapy, learning to communicate better, to support each other without losing ourselves. It wasn't easy, but slowly, we began to find our way back to each other. As Alice's suspension neared its end, we sat down to have a serious conversation about our future. "I've been thinking," Alice said, her hand clasped tightly in mine. "Maybe it's time for a change, a fresh start." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of change?" "I've been offered a position with a nonprofit in Seattle," she said, watching my reaction carefully. "They do advocacy work for LGBTQ families. It's a pay cut, but I think it could be good for us." I felt a mix of emotions, fear, excitement, uncertainty. "Seattle? That's a big move." Alice nodded. "I know. And if you don't want to go, I understand. But Mila, I think we need this. A chance to start over, away from all the drama and bad memories here." I took a deep breath, considering. Leave everything behind? My clients, my family, the life we'd built here? But as I looked into Alice's eyes, seeing the hope and love there, I knew my answer. "Okay," I said, feeling a smile spread across my face. "Let's do it. Let's move to Seattle." Alice's face lit up, and she pulled me in for a kiss that left me breathless. As we began to plan our new adventure, I felt a renewed sense of hope. We'd been through so much, but we'd come out stronger. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Our story wasn't over. It was just beginning a new chapter.